Hi, and welcome to another narration presented by yours truly, Cryptids Roost. Please be so kind as to throat punch the like button, and don't forget to smack the ass of that subscription button as well. Plus don't forget to share the video far and wide. This will help with YouTube's algorithm and will help promote the channel more. And if you would like to support the channel and help make it grow, any and all donations can be made to paypal.me/cryptidsroost and would be gratefully received. If you enjoy listening to the following story, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. The link to this Reddit profile will be below in the description, and don't forget to check out the merch store. The links will be in the description and in the video thumbnail. If you would like an honourable mention, send in a snapshot of yourself with your purchase and I'll feature it in one of the videos. And if you're going to leave a dislike, please leave a comment as to why. That way I can see what you didn't like about the video and I can possibly make changes in future videos. Thank you. And finally, have you written a creepypasta story you would like me to narrate for you? Have you had any cryptid sightings, paranormal or supernatural encounters? You can submit your stories and encounters to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me. All the links are listed below. So grab your coffee, sit back and enjoy the show. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not. I work at the only pizza place in town. This fantastic mini-series is written by the Pizza Man 2222, also known as Rose Black 2222, a wonderful author over on Reddit's NoSleep subreddit. A job as a pizza delivery driver can be dangerous, but I'm sure most of you already know that. However, my job is dangerous for different reasons. What do I mean by that? Well, to start with, call me Pete. Though most people in town call me the Pizza Man. Some even call me Pizza Pete. Now, as for which town I live in, I'm not going to say, for two reasons. One, the fewer people that are here, the easier my job is. And two, our town is dangerous. Not just for the unusual reasons I'm going to describe, but also for the fact we have a lot of crime in our area. You see, people in my town are fucking crazy. I've been stabbed by someone because I didn't bring them a cold bottle of soda. Yes, that actually happened to me. Now that you have at least a vague idea of the kind of area I live in, let me tell you where I work. I work at a mom and pop's pizza place. The owners named it after themselves, so I can't tell you what it's actually called. But for the purposes of this post and for any future ones, I'll refer to it as formaggio's. That means cheese in Italian, and I'll also be referring to the owners, aka my bosses, as Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio. Their pizza shop happens to be the only pizza place in town, unless you happen to count places like grocery stores where you can get frozen pizzas. And while those pizzas are alright, they pale in comparison to the pizzas Formaggio makes. But enough of that. You probably wanted me to elaborate on what I meant by unusual reasons. I mentioned that the people in town I live in are nuts, but it's not just that. The town seems to attract crazy on top of all the other weird shit. And sure, occasionally a relatively normal person will come to our town. But those types of people clearly want to get through it as quickly as they can. Even rarer are the supposed normal people who decide they want to move here, usually because they want to live somewhere quiet. What usually ends up happening to those types of people is that they turn out to be the craziest people of all, or they go missing. As a matter of fact, the town junkyard is filled with the abandoned, mangled cars of people that went missing. Sometimes they'll find a license plate left over that the local police are able to figure out a missing person's address and get in contact with their loved ones. If they don't have a wallet or something like that that got left behind that they can look up though. I have a sneaking suspicion that some of the cops keep the money found in these wallets and purses for themselves, but they at least are somewhat competent at their jobs, so I'll give them that. While there have been cars found that have been damaged in abnormal ways, most cars here are damaged in car wrecks. I know that seems like a no-brainer, but we have a pretty high serious drunk driver problem. Anyway, I should probably expand on the whole abnormal ways thing. For one, the cars almost seem to be found far away from the road. Not just far away, but in places it seems almost impossible for them to get to without a helicopter lifting them or something like that. I even saw one police report saying that they found a car stuck in a tree. I should probably mention the trees around here are mostly oak and range from 80 to 100 feet in height, so it would be almost impossible for it to end up there on its own. That's just one incident. There was another where a car had been found that looked like something had pushed the front and the back end of it together. In that case, a body was recovered. Luckily, his wallet was still there, otherwise it would have been impossible to identify him. But people going missing isn't the strange thing that happens in our town. It's when they come back, usually after about a month or so. We tend to call these people the returned, for lack of a better word anyway. At least you might want to call them zombies. But the thing is, these people aren't technically undead. And while I know that word doesn't necessarily apply to something undead, I don't want you to think I'm talking about a flesh eater. That being said, the returned are extremely dangerous. I'm going to tell you about my encounter I had with one yesterday. It was around 6 AM when I woke up. Then I went outside. Mr. Formaggio has me come in between 8 and 8:30 to do prepping for the day. Since my shifts usually tend to end up being 10 to 12 hour ones, I'm usually too tired to get any exercise when I get back, so I chose to do it in the morning. Anyway, I've been walking around town for about half an hour. During this time, no shop has opened up yet. They wait till sunrise to do that. I had walked to the centre of town, where Formaggio's is located, by the way, when I noticed someone on the other side of the street. They were facing away from me and were making these jittery movements. Thinking it was just a meth head or something, I continued on my walk. It didn't take long for me to realise that this person was trying to track me. Annoyed, I considered heading back to my place. I do keep a pocket knife and a gun on me, so if this person did try something, I wouldn't have much issue fighting them off. However, I didn't want it to come to that. I'd rather not have to stab or shoot someone. As I was considering heading home, the person turned to face me. The first thing I noticed about them was their glowing yellow eyes. They stepped closer under a street light and I was able to see everything about them. The person in question turned out to be a female. Her skin was a sickly pale and her hair was blonde with multiple patches of grey running through it. We looked at each other for a few minutes before she made this rattling shriek. Her body contorted, making several loud cracks until her hands and feet were on the ground in a spider-like pose. Quickly, she started crawling across the street towards me. I didn't hesitate to pull my gun out, then shoot her point blank in the head. She fell over, and after twitching for a few moments, fell still. By this time, the sun was starting to show itself, and several people had come outside, no doubt having heard the gunshots, one of whom was the town sheriff, named Chuck. I made sure to put my gun away before he approached me, still in his pyjamas. He looked down at the woman's body, then to me, and asked, "Another one?" "Yep," I replied. He sighed and said, "God damn it. How do these people always end up like this? Beats me. Just so you know, it was one of those spider ones again. I figured from the way her limbs are bent. Do you need me to come to the station and answer any questions?" "That won't be necessary, Pete. We can take care of the body. But we will be ordering a pizza later today, so you'll be coming by later today anyway. Speaking of which, what's the speciality this week? I haven't had a chance to check it out." "I'm glad you asked. It's actually a seasoned feta cheese pizza with sausage and black olives. I might give that a try. I highly recommend that. And, oh shit, it's almost 7. I gotta go home so I can get ready for work. No problem, Pete. Take care. You too, I told Chuck. They started sprinting back towards my house. I know that seemed like a pretty mundane reaction to what I just described, but as you've already figured out, this isn't the first time something like this has happened in our town. Hell, that wasn't even my first time encountering something like this. Nor am I the only person in town who has had something like this happen to them. Ask around town if people have witnessed anything strange. Chances are you'll get a story like mine, if not even weirder. Anyway, thankfully for me, I didn't run into any more trouble on the way home. However, I did notice some things were amiss. Mostly it was seeing moving shapes in the woods nearby, but I couldn't really make them out due to how far away they were. All I noticed about them was that they had glowing eyes similar to the woman I saw. The only difference was that eyes were glowing with multiple different colours, not just yellow. One particular pair of eyes gave me an uneasy feeling. Those were a pair of amber eyes that almost seemed to flicker like a flame. The reason they made me feel uneasy was that I hadn't seen any creature with those eyes, and I haven't heard about anyone who had seen it either. I decided to ignore it and head inside. An hour or so later, I'd gotten ready, then headed to work. Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio greeted me when I arrived. "Hey Pete, I heard about what happened. You alright?" Mr. Formaggio asked. "I'm fine, thanks for asking though. Besides prepping, is there anything I should know about?" "Carl called him another catering order. He said he's going to want 5 of the specialty pizzas and a Caesar salad," Mrs. Formaggio said. Carl is the one who owns the gun store in town. Most people know him as Crazy Carl. And while there is something off about him, he is ironically our best and most polite customer. At least I haven't had any issues with the guy. In fact, Eve saved several people around town from the returned and other creatures. "Will do. I'll be sure to deliver the order to him later today. By the way, we'll probably get a call from Chuck wanting some of the specialty pizzas later today." "Thanks for letting us know, Pete. Can you do us a favour and make 20 more portions than usual for when he calls?" Mr. Formaggio asked. "Will do," I said, then got to work. After prepping everything and heating up the ovens, I made sure to set up the tables. We actually have a pretty nice sit-down area for the people who feel like eating inside the restaurant. Anyway, the day went pretty well at first. Then around 5, Carl and Chuck called in their orders. It took about an hour to make all their pizzas, and I was the one to deliver them. The station and Carl's store are located near each other, so it wasn't much of an issue for me to deliver them there. I usually end up using Mr. Formaggio's car to make deliveries. Crazy Carl's was the first place I stopped off at. I walked in his store carrying 5 pizzas and a bottle of Coke. "Pizza Pete! Am I glad to see you? I've been waiting all day for these bad boys," he said, taking the pizzas and soda from me. "Hope you enjoy it, Carl. I'd love to chat for a few minutes, but I got to make a delivery to the station." "Take care then, and be careful. I heard there may be a thunderstorm today." "I will. I actually had a run-in with the returns this morning." "I heard about that. I myself had a run-in with one of them flying creatures." "I heard about those. When did it happen?" "A few nights ago. The son of a bitch woke me up at like 3 in the morning by landing on my roof. They tried attacking me as soon as I stepped outside. But you know how quick I am with my shots. My shotgun got the bastard in one of its legs. I would have finished it off, but the pussy flew into the woods." "I see. I'll be sure to stay on my guard then. Later." "See ya," Carl told me. After that, I headed to the station. I was lucky enough to have Chuck approach my car. "How are things at the station?" I asked, after putting my window down and handing him the food. "Been pretty good. We'll need to make more of that special ammo though. How've things been for you? Since the returned incident, I mean." I delivered to Carl's today. He told me that one of those flying creatures attacked him a few nights ago. Can't say I'm unsurprised. You'd think he'd have moved closer to town by now, instead of living in the woods. Well, everyone knows the man enjoys his solitude. Anyway, I've got to get back to the store. Enjoy the food. Judging by this wonderful smell, I will. Take care, Pete, he told me. I waved him goodbye, then headed back to Formaggio's. I worked a couple more hours until my shift ended around 8:30. When I headed out, it was starting to rain. By the time I got home, it was pouring. The rain has still been going on since last night. Fortunately, I have the weekends off, except when I get called in. So I've just been playing games all day. I'll update you all if something else happens. Remember to stay safe and have fun. This is Pizza Pete, signing out.
Part 2.
So, some bullshit happened to me today. Well, technically yesterday, as of my posting this. I got called into work. Apparently, Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio had a family emergency involving Mrs. Formaggio's mother, so they couldn't run the store. Yours truly was the first person they called. Now, I know that getting called in is just something that can't be avoided. Thing is, the rain from last night had still been going on, and the returned and other creatures tend to come out more during darker times, such as when visibility is low due to heavy rain or fog in some cases. The town does have a procedure where owners of shops can choose not to open their store until the weather clears up. Thing is, there are a good bit of opportunistic criminals who will take these opportunities to try and break into the closed store, and Formaggio tends to make a lot of money. Before I went out, I had to make a few preparations in addition to what I'd normally do. I made sure to bring my utility belt, which I use to keep several more knives on me, plus the knife and gun I normally carry. The knives in question have several different runes that I wrote on the blade. People in town figured out that most of the creatures that weren't as susceptible to brute force were weakened by certain symbols. This was all figured out by early settlers of our town, or at least that's the theory. At the town library there is an old book containing various runes and symbols corresponding with different creatures. For example, you'd open it to a page to see 4 symbols, then next to it the words blue-eyed, wide-mouthed monster. This helped people to know that those runes weakened that creature specifically. Most everybody in town has a copy of the original book, thanks to the librarian, Alice. She hand-wrote multiple copies for the town. My hand hurts after writing just 2 pages. I have no idea how she was able to do it. You might be thinking that people in town put multiple sets of runes on the same blade. That, however, isn't a very good idea. Each set of runes can only be applied to a single object at a time. If someone tried putting 2 or more sets of runes on the same object, they'd just cancel each other out. But that's just for small objects, such as knives. Large objects, such as houses or stores, can have multiple runes on them, so long as each set is far enough apart from each other. When on a larger object, they have their own radius, and so long as different sets are far enough apart from each other on said object, that'll work fine. In fact, my house and many other homes and buildings in town are covered in these sets of runes. But while they do keep the returned and many other creatures at bay, they don't stop assholes who try breaking into stores. That's where I come in. I made sure to peek out before stepping outside. I was fortunate enough not to see any returned or glowing pairs of eyes. My luck changed when I stepped out and locked the door behind me. I looked up to see what we call a long-necked creature staring down at me from my roof. It had fleshy red scorpion-like skin, 4 legs similar to that of a spider, and to top it all off, a long neck, with a rounded head, sharp teeth and white eyes. Its face was just a few inches from mine. It opened its mouth wide to bite me, but before it could, I pulled out one of my knives and thrust it into one of its eyes. I pulled my knife out before it hit the ground. Then when it did, I cut its throat. I had to, or else its dying screams would attract more creatures. A few splurts of green blood shot from its neck before it fell still. Shaking my head in annoyance, I got in my car. Usually I would just walk to work, since it's so close by. However, a lot of those fuckers can attack someone in half an hour, and I am fortunate enough to own a car with a quiet engine. It took me a few minutes to reach work. On the way there, I saw many returned running along the streets and sidewalk, also other creatures crawling up buildings, even a few flying creatures. I assumed those must be like the one Carl encountered. When I got to Formaggio's, I was greeted with the sight of 6 returned, but these returned looked different. While still in the spider pose, these looked as if 2 people had their waist cut off, then they refused to the other person like that had happened to them. If you'd ever seen Cat Dog, that should let you know what they're like. They had white eyes and were just staring at my headlights, most likely because they thought my car was one of them. They aren't exactly smart. I was considering what I should do. I could have just run them over, but I just took my car to the mechanic last week. My second option was to just shoot them, but if I wasn't quick enough to kill them all, they'd start shrieking when they saw one of their kind was killed, and attract more of them, or something even worse. I thought about honking my horn. It does work to scare them away, however, it may just end up attracting other creatures. Just move, you pieces of shit, I thought. Just as I was thinking this, I heard the sounds of a siren and saw blue and red lights in the distance. All of the returned immediately started crawling towards it. Seizing this opportunity, I was able to drive up to Formaggio's and park, then unlock the door and head inside. It wasn't long after heading inside that I heard several gunshots, followed by the sound of the police car coming towards the store. I clocked in and was able to start prepping before Chuck approached the building, along with his deputy, Bill. "Hey guys, wanna come in? The store isn't open yet, and I started on the prepping." "Thanks, Pig. Come on, Sam," Chuck said, stepping into the store with Sam behind him. "By the way, thanks for drawing those fuckers away from me." "Don't mention it, but weren't you supposed to be off today?" "The Formaggio's had a family emergency." "I see. Anyone else working today?" "Just me. I suggested to Mr. Formaggio that at least one other person should work with me, but he said we aren't busy enough during this kind of weather to justify it. Just my luck, right? I'm the only thing standing between this door and a drugged out cokehead trying to break in. Sorry to hear that, Pete. We'd love to stay and help, but we need to make sure other stores are safe." "I understand. Why don't you come back later? I'll make you eat your free pizza." "That sounds nice. Well, we better get going." "Right, later. Oh, before you go, I actually encountered one of those long neck things. Its body is in my driveway, so if you could, you know." "Understood. We'll have someone clear it up as soon as we can," Chuck said. Then he and Sam left. Sam doesn't talk all that much, in case you haven't noticed, and tends to be more of by-the-book cop. Well, as by-the-book as you can in this town anyway. By the time I finished prepping and setting everything up, I saw another car pull up. It rolled in, then parked with smoke coming out of its hood. A man who looked roughly the same age as me stepped out. He was thin with blonde hair and brown eyes. "Hey, my car broke down. Mind if I sit in here for a bit and call for a tow truck?" he asked me. "Sure, but one probably won't come through here for a while." "Why is that?" I explained to him that it gets more dangerous around here during thunderstorms. Obviously, leaving out the part about the returns and creatures like that. I just told him that muggings and break-ins tend to happen more often during weather like this. Through casual conversation, I learned that his name was Nick, and that he was passing through town on his way to his grandpa's funeral. "Your grandpa died? Condolences, man. I've been there," I told him. "Thanks. I feel really bad. But he was in his 80s. It was bound to happen eventually. Still, doesn't make it any easier to deal with though. I live out of state, which is why I'm driving. I thought it'd be cheaper than flying. Then this happened, Nick said, gesturing towards the car outside. Wish I could help somehow. It's alright, it'll get fixed when it gets fixed. Actually, I haven't eaten since yesterday, he said, picking up one of the menus. He ended up ordering a mushroom and pepperoni pizza, along with some pasta and a beer. On the house, I said to him after setting his food down. Thanks, Pete. You know, I'm probably going to be going back through here after the funeral. I'd like for us to hang out. Let's just hope it isn't raining again when we come back through, I said. We talked more about different things, favourite movies, food, things like that. The rain eventually let up, and by the time it did, it was nightfall. Hey, this area tends to get pretty dangerous at night. Why don't I take you to my place? I asked him. You sure? I don't want to intrude. Nah, it's fine. I just need to close. I had just finished closing when I heard Nick yell. What in the fuck is that thing? He screamed. I looked up to see another one of those white-eyed, long-necked creatures staring at us from across the street. Oh, that. Yeah, we get those sometimes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you wouldn't believe me? I can see what's going on here. What? You drugged my beer, didn't you? What? No, why would I do that? Hell if I know. Maybe you're just bored and this is how you get your kicks. I thought you were cool. I'm leaving, Nick said, heading to the door. No, I said, getting in front of him. That thing isn't a hallucination. If you leave this door while it's out there, it will kill you. Why should I believe you? Do you really want to go out there and take that chance? He looked at the creature, then back to me. Okay, you have a point. Assuming that thing is real, how do we get rid of it? Well, I could go out there and kill it, but there might be more. There's more of them? Yeah, I'll explain when we get to my place. The creature went away a few minutes after we were done talking. I clocked out, then drove Nick to my house. He was spooked about all the creatures he saw on the way there. Apparently, he hadn't had any encounters on his way into town. Once we were in my house, I explained to him the full story about this town. He still thinks I probably drugged him. Hopefully by tomorrow he'll believe me. He seems like a nice guy, and I'd hate for something to happen to him. He's sleeping on my couch right now. Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio won't be back until Wednesday. As I'm finishing typing this, it's nearly 20 to 6, and I have an opening shift in under 3 hours. Fuck my life, right? Oh well, at least I'll have someone to work with this time, and I'll be sure to pound back some energy drinks. Wish me luck. I'll update you all probably next week if and when something else happens. This is Pizza Pete, signing out. Part 3. Hey guys, it's Nick from the last post. If you're wondering where Pete is, he's in the hospital. I visited him and he said he got his leg stabbed, then broken by what he described as some incredibly fucked up shit. Before I tell you about it, I have to admit I was wrong about what I accused him of before. All it took was seeing another one of those monstrosities the next night after he let me stay at his place. In that instance, I saw what is known as a big mouth, which was a spherical spider-legged creature with a large mouth, as its name implies, full of razor-sharp teeth. I was outside, getting some fresh air on Pete's porch, when I saw that thing come out of the woods. I would have gone back inside, but my dumbass ended up locking myself out. Given that Pete's house was covered in runes, I thought I was safe. But webs are a thing, which it shot from its mouth and used to pull me towards it. I didn't have any time to react. I struggled as its web pulled me towards its open mouth, but it was no use. I thought I was a goner when a car came whizzing by and struck the creature's legs, taking them off. Its body hit the ground face first. Not wasting any time, I pulled my shirt off, which the web was attached to, and threw it at the creature. It kept moving, like a turtle on its back that was trying to flip itself over. I actually found it somewhat amusing, until it started to roll towards me. I was going to make a run for it when the same car from before struck it again. This time the person in question got out of his car. "Fucking dear think they own the place," he said to the now dead thing in the road in a heavily slurred voice. He gave it a swift kick in one of its eyes before getting back in his car. Then he drove off, hitting several wooden mailboxes going down the road. This town really needs to do something about its drunk driver problem. But seeing as how one saved me, I guess I shouldn't complain about them too much. Pete arrived shortly after and seeing the thing on the road and me without a shirt, figured quickly what happened. He unlocked the door for me, then proceeded to show me ways to defend myself against the creatures. He had spare knives with runes on them he was kind enough to let me have. I asked him if he had another copy of his rune book, but it was the only one, and I thought it was too important to ask him for it. I just settled on taking pictures of each individual page for my phone, which as you can imagine is tedious as hell. My car was fixed the next day, and still on a tight schedule to make it to my grandpa's funeral, I had to head straight out from the mechanic shop. I already had everything I brought to Pete's house, so there was no need to go back there. Pete drove me to the mechanic shop and saw me off from there. We exchanged numbers and I told him I'd contact him after I was done with the funeral. I don't feel comfortable going into much detail about the funeral, but I made it to it 3 days later, and while it was hard to get through, I was glad to see my grandpa off one last time. I called Pete after the funeral at the motel I was staying at. I asked him if he was safe and he replied that he was doing alright, but was annoyed by how busy work had been that week. We talked for a little while about the funeral and the fact that Mrs. Formaggio's mother had suffered a heart attack. He told me that they were staying at her mother's to give her emotional support and wouldn't be back until Thursday. Then he asked me if I wanted to meet up with him in town on Friday afternoon when he was off work. As much as I liked Pete, I didn't want to revisit a town surrounded by woods filled with dangerous creatures that can kill me. So we agreed he'd meet me outside of town where the creatures didn't show up. At least that was the original plan. I was driving up to our specified location on Friday when I heard one of my tyres pop. "Motherfucker!" I screamed when I saw my front right tyre had run over a pile of rusty nails, as well as a few glass bottles. "Who the fuck did this? Who did this?" I yelled, then punched my passenger door out of sheer frustration. I wouldn't have minded so much if I had a spare tyre to use, and if it didn't mean going back into town, not seeing any other choice, I called a tow truck to come get me. It arrived from town at about 6:30. After hooking my car, picked me up, I asked him if he happened to know Pete. "The pizza man? Hell yeah! I've been to a lot of pizza places, but let me tell ya, Formaggio's are some good shit. But Pete's in the hospital." "What? Why?" "He had a run-in with one of those monsters today." "I'll be sure to pay him a visit then." "When you do, tell him Mikey said hey. I'd visit him, but work is a bitch." I drove my car from the shop an hour later, then headed to the hospital. By the time I got there, it was almost night time. Pete was especially happy to see me again. "Hey," he told me. "Hey back," I said, then relayed the message to him that Mike gave me. Heh, I'll have to give him some free pizza. I still owe him for that favour he did for me last month. Said favour being... My battery died when I was running errands last month, and I also forgot my wallet. I left it at home. But Mike gave me a free tow and lift. That was nice of him. By the way, what the hell happened to your leg?" Pete's right leg was in a purple cast. "Oh, that. I had to deliver to Carl, the dude that owns the gun store in town." "Crazy Carl?" "Yeah, him. I usually don't have any problems when delivering to him, but in that case I had to drive up to his home. Since he was feeling sick and couldn't run his shop, but in that case I had to drive up to his home since he was feeling sick and couldn't run his shop. Honestly, he told us if we thought it was too dangerous to deliver to his place, we didn't have to. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have volunteered to do it. Carl's house is located pretty deep in the woods outside town. To be honest, the delivery was going fine until I went up to his door with the pizzas and soda, then rang the doorbell. I felt something hit my back, then yanked me. The next thing I knew, I was pinned by my leg upside down to a tree. What did it do to you? A tall motherfucker. I've actually never seen that kind of creature in person before. Only in my book, it was the one with the two mouths for eyes. You mean the one where it had a second mouth in place of its eyes? Yeah, that one. And two long-ass tongues that it used to pull me back. It pinned my leg to the tree using one of what would you describe his claws as? Scythe-like? Yeah, let's go with that. It hurt like fuck, but I didn't want to scream in fear it would attract more creatures. Didn't you have any weapons with you? I did, and I tried pulling one out, but the bastard knocked it out of my hand before I could use it. I was pretty sure I was fucking dead when it raised its other claw. Then I heard a small chink sound and saw it start to slump forwards, which was not good for me because man did it breath smell. Ha! You got a good sense of humour for someone who was almost killed. What can I say? Laughter is the best medicine. So, as I was saying, I saw that an arrow that I figured had some runes carved into the head had been shot into the back of the tall fucker's skull. It turned to look who'd shot it, and when it did, I saw the top of his head had been blown off. It fell to the ground, during which his claw slipped from my leg, and I fell as well. I ended up landing on my injured leg, which broke, as you can see. Carl rushed over to me, then brought me inside, and after bandaging my leg as best he could and getting his pizzas and soda off the ground, drove me up to the hospital. He wanted to keep pizzas that were on the ground? Yeah, but he said since they were still in the boxes, they were still good. Anyways, he drove me to the hospital. We arrived there at 3, and I've been here since. I'm happy that you survived, Pete. Same, goddammit. I have a ton of games and shows I've been meaning to try, and will not die before I get a chance to. But can you do me a favour, Nick? I've actually been making posts on Reddit about my experiences. I was supposed to do it today, but, well, you know. Do you want me to do it? If it's not too much trouble. No problem. Thanks. And feel free to let me know how things have been going with you. I just might. That brings us to now. It's after 3:30 in the morning as I post this from my phone. Pete was falling asleep, and I'm about to head down to grab some food from the snack machines. Pete will probably be well enough to post to you guys again next week. I'm going, to be honest. I don't currently have a job or anything, and this town is starting to grow on me despite its obvious hazards. Maybe it's just because of Pete, but I'm starting to like this place. Who knows, I might just stay for a little while after he's discharged from the hospital. This is Nick, signing out.
Part 4.
Hey, it's the Pizza Man again. Hope you all saw the last post that Nick made. Since the incident in the forest, I have been released from the hospital. Thankfully, the creature didn't cause any permanent damage. It just took some bandages to heal the wound, and my leg was put in a cast. Although getting used to these crutches have been a pain in the ass, Nick's had to help me up several times when I've lost my balance and fallen on my face. Speaking of Nick, he's actually moved in with me. We got to talking some more since the last post, and as it turns out, he actually been kicked out by his parents. The reasoning for it was because he got kicked out of his college. It was because some other students who he had problems with claiming he was harassing them. Those students had been going to the college for years and were well liked by everyone, so everyone believed them over Nick. He got a call from his dad who berated him over what happened. Apparently his dad and mom believe the school and other students over their own son. Great parents, right? Nick was told by his dad not to bother coming home for a place to stay, and shortly after, Nick found out his number had been blocked by them. He did see them again at the funeral, but he didn't bother talking with them, and they didn't bother speaking with him. Since Nick had been banned from his home, he'd been drifting from place to place. He would stay at the cheapest motels he could find. Sometimes he would even sleep in his car. Truth be told, he was just about out of money when he returned to my town. I normally wouldn't share information so personal, but I figured you'd all be wondering why Nick decided to move here of all places. I asked him if he was okay to tell you all this, and he said that it was. I managed to get him an interview at Formaggio's. According to Nick, it was something like this. "Have you had any experience in this kind of restaurant?" Mr. Formaggio asked Nick. "I've worked at Domino's for a couple of years." "Good enough. You're hired." So now he and I are working together. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. I have been back at work since my last post, mostly to show Nick the ropes. Because of my injury, there are a few conditions in regards to me going to work. For one, I can only head out to work when it's daylight out, and I have to be off before dark if I'm working alone. If I'm working with someone, I can stay to help them close. And lastly, if there is any heavy fog or thunderstorms out, I get the day off. But I want to talk about something that happened on Thursday, because what occurred I have never seen nor heard about. Nick and I were at Formaggio's. It was later in the day and most of the customers were heading home. The only customers we had left was Chuck and Sam, who were getting ready for their nightly patrol. "Should I ask them to leave since we're closing?" Nick asked me. "Nah, they're cool." "Hey Pete, I don't think we've been introduced to your friend here. I think I overheard your name is Nick, right?" Chuck asked him. "Yeah, nice to meet you, Chuck," Nick said, reading his badge. They shook hands. Then Nick did the same with Sam. They all chatted for a bit before I told Nick we had to get busy closing. After telling us bye, Chuck and Sam left. Then Nick and I got to closing. Fortunately, there are plenty of counters and such for me to use in order to get around, so I didn't have too much trouble. Nick learned pretty quickly. I showed him how to shut off and clean the ovens and dishes and where to store food in the walk-in fridge. He had taken out the trash and I was counting to see how many of which ingredients we had left and which ones we needed to buy. I was halfway done counting when Nick called me from the dining room. "Hey Pete, can you tell me what the hell this is? It's probably just some..." I was about to say until I saw what Nick was looking at. Up in the sky far ahead of us was swirling rainbow-coloured mass, which was hovering above the forest in the distance. "Ever seen anything like this before?" "No, I've never heard anything like this. I haven't ever seen it in my book." "Think it's dangerous?" "I don't know. Wait, I think that thing is hovering over Carl's house. Take a picture or something of that thing. I'm going to call Carl's shop." "What happens if something comes out of that thing and attacks us?" "We make a break for it." I called Carl. He picked up on the first couple of rings. "Pete, what's up?" "Carl, where are you at right now?" "Just in the back of my store, about to close up." "Why, need something?" "Look outside, towards your property." He did as I asked. "What in the fuck? How long has that thing been there?" "Not sure. Nick and I just noticed it. We didn't see it before, so I'm guessing it have just appeared tonight." Chuck and the others have probably noticed it already, but I think I'll call them anyway. "Have you seen any creatures yet?" "Actually, we haven't, come to think of it, and they usually start coming out at this time." "Do you think that thing in the sky has something to do with it?" Before he could answer, the thing in the sky slammed into the ground. The impact could be heard all across town. "The fuck? You see what that thing just did?" "Yeah, Oh shit." Something came slithering towards the restaurant. Said thing was a giant worm creature. Its mouth was circular with sharp teeth. Its face had multiple eyes matching the rainbow colour of the thing that was in the sky. Please tell me the restaurant has the rooms to keep that thing back. Please tell me the restaurant has the rooms to keep that thing back. Pete, everything alright? Carl asked. We're going to need some help here, I said. Seeing multiple returned and the other creatures also come towards the restaurant. Don't worry, I'll be there as soon as possible, Carl said. I heard a loud crash from his end and the call went dead. Carl! Carl! I yelled. Oh shit, something's happened to him, didn't it? Looks like it. Does that mean he's... I don't know. I hope not. Carl's tough. We have to believe he'll pull through. Where does that leave us then? That worm thing could come here at any moment. Call the department. Once they hear about what happened, they'll come here. Nick called and told them about the situation. They told him that they were on the way, but it may be a while since there were a lot of creatures. They said it's going to take like 10 minutes. We'll just have to hope we can survive until then. Look under the counter. You'll find some weapons. Jesus Christ, look at all these guns. Yeah, toss me a shotgun and a box of shells. Quickly, now, I said as the worm was now quickly slithering over to us. I quickly loaded and cocked the gun as it started to rear its head back. As it started to strike, I threw the door open and gave it a shot to the face, and it was knocked back. And in return tried taking the opportunity to rush me. I knocked it back with the butt of the gun, then quickly closed the door. You almost let one of them in. I didn't have a choice. If that thing breaks the glass, they'll all be able to get in. I thought the rooms were supposed to keep them back. They do, but opening the door creates a sort of opening in the barrier. Obviously, we can't exactly draw runes in mid-air. Now do me a favour before that worm thing recovers. You ever shoot a gun? A few times. Grab a gun and ammo, then head up to the roof and start firing at these things. I'll meet you up there in just a second. We don't get paid enough for this, he said, climbing up the ladders to the roof hatch. I had to shoot at the worm again, and several returned before Nick started firing. When he did, I leapt over to the ladder, then made my way up. I saw several winged creatures descending towards Nick, and shot them all back. Wow, I didn't even notice them. Thanks, Pete. Don't mention it, just keep shooting. I got the other side of the building covered. The worm and the other creatures continued attacking for the next 5 minutes. We heard other gunshots coming from different parts of town. One of the flying creatures managed to get past me, then sink its teeth into Nick's ribs. Ow, motherfucker! You piece of shit! He said, pulling out a knife and stabbing out both of its eyes. He aimed his shotgun at it, then blew its head off. Sorry, Nick, I was reloading. Oh shit, I said. I looked up to see another winged creature descending towards me. I was able to block its attack, but it started to lift me by the gun I held. I thought quickly pulling out a knife and stabbing it in the neck. Seeing as how the creatures that attacked us were dead, save for the worm, we decided to train our guns on it. Unfortunately, we were met with the sound of clicks when we pulled the triggers. Is there any more ammo down below? I asked. No, I grabbed all the ammo we had when I came up here. Should I grab the handguns? They won't do any good against this thing. Then what are we gonna do? It's getting ready to attack again. The worm got ready to attack again when it was knocked back once more. We looked over to see Carl with his gun pointed at the beast. He ran over to it and tossed something in its mouth. Then he ran away from it as fast as he could. What happened next was the worm's head blowing up, bits of blue blood raining down from the sky. Ew! Somebody got in my mouth, Nick said, spitting. Never mind that, we have bigger problems. Look! The explosion had attracted another horde of creatures, who swarmed towards Carl. He was able to hold them off for a little while, but eventually it looked as if he would be overpowered. Thankfully, Chuck and Sam arrived just in time, then took out the other creatures. Thank fucking Christ, Nick said. You said it. Let's head back down. Shortly after, the 5 of us were sitting at one of the tables. I asked Carl what happened, and he said that a creature that he hadn't seen before smashed through his store window and grabbed him, but he was able to break free and kill it. Chuck apologised for taking so long and said that they'd been dealing with calls all night. Then he told me and Nick to stay safe before he and Sam left. When he did, I asked Carl, "By the way, how did you make that thing's head explode?" "Grenade." "What? How'd you get it?" "Don't worry about it. It got the job done, right?" "True. Need a lift home?" I looked at Nick. No thanks. My car luckily didn't get damaged." "Alright then. Can't believe I have to get my store's windows replaced and then redraw them runes on it. What a pain in the ass. Anyway, take care, you two." "Take care and thanks, Carl," I said. "Don't mention it." "Oh, and Nick," Carl asked as he was almost out the door. "What is it?" Carl pointed at me and said, "Make sure you have his back." Nick smiled and said, "Yeah, you got it." We locked up and went home after Carl left. On the way, we saw twice as many police cars than usual out, and more creatures we hadn't seen before. Nick and I are lucky to have survived our encounter, and he was fortunate enough to only need some rubbing alcohol and a few bandages on the spot where the creature bit him. I don't know why that thing in the sky appeared, or how these new creatures are presumably connected to it, but we are going to get to the bottom of this. Knowing Carl, he'll probably try to investigate whatever it was that landed near his property. I'll call him tomorrow to see what he's found. Then Nick and I will go to his house later this week. I just hope he doesn't get himself killed, and I hope that I don't run into one of those tall cunts again. See you all again soon. This is Pizza Pete, signing out. Part 5. You know, there are days when I really fucking hate this job. In particular, we had a bit of a hostage situation, literally the day after my last post. I know what you might be thinking, who the hell robs a pizza place? That's what I thought when someone walked in around closing time and pulled a gun on us. And by us, I mean Mr. and Mrs. Formaggio, Nick and myself. The man in particular looked to be a biker type. He was overweight and looked to be in his late 40s, early 50s with a long beard. This isn't the first time something like this has happened. It's usually either someone seriously fucked up on drugs or a passerby who thinks they can rob a store consequence free, then skip town. Seeing as though it tends to happen frequently, we actually have a bit of a protocol. That's where the monsters actually come in handy. If we just can't get to a gun without the robber noticing, believe me, we tried to warn him not to go out, but he didn't listen. They never do. Some returned, tore him apart before he could even get on his motorcycle. He didn't even see them coming. Nick was understandably nauseous after seeing it and threw up. He wasn't used to it like the rest of us. I remember just starting out. Seeing him spew actually made me feel a bit nostalgic. After that, it was just a matter of making sure the coast was clear, then getting the money back. Now this plan won't work if the robber gets swallowed whole. Sometimes the monster who swallows them will cough up the money, which is usually in a plastic grocery bag. But man, we were doing good. We didn't have a robbery at our store for like a year until then. But the silver lining is we managed to get the cash back. Enough of that though. I want to tell you about what I've learned, what I'm going to refer to as the rainbow thingy that I mentioned in the last post. To start, I have some bad news. The town lost some people to the new monsters that showed up. Me and people I know were lucky enough to have survived, but other people who didn't have the weapons to fight these things weren't so lucky. Chuck told me they found 5 bodies and that 5 were also missing. He told me they tried their hardest, but they just didn't have the equipment or manpower to deal with these new creatures. Truth be told, he looked pretty distraught about the whole thing. Chuck is a good guy, and I hate seeing him like that, so I promised to help him solve the problem. That started with calling Carl for an update on the rainbow thingy. Bizarrely, and annoyingly enough, it seemed to have vanished since landing near his property. He said he spent hours looking for it, but found nothing. He even got a search party together to help him, but it yielded similar results. The only thing that they did see was a tall figure with gold eyes. Not gold as in yellow. Carl and several others described them as looking like 2 big almond-shaped eyes that looked like they were made of solid gold. They couldn't make out the rest of the figure because of how dark it was in the forest. The only reason they noticed the eyes was because of how bright they were. I told him not to be so reckless and how dangerous the forest is. He told me, "No shit, I only live here, Pete." I said to him that his point was taken and to call me if any new developments occurred. Naturally, he's also been keeping the police updated. Speaking of which, Carl has actually hooked them up with some explosives to deal with the new creatures, in exchange for them looking the other way on the fact that he owned them. It's supposed to be a temporary solution until we can find the right combination of whatever coloured runes to keep these things away, assuming that that's what will work on them. Now, the town was lucky enough to not have lost anyone since the last incident, mostly due to the fact that the town was now under an emergency home before sunset curfew. It was in effect until we were able to solve the problem. And as much as I hate working on my days off, the weekend is the only time when I can investigate anything. If I'm not called in, that is. Nick was nice enough to accompany me. Our search started on Saturday. We headed to the town library to see if Alice knew anything. Alice is a nice woman. She's 30 and works alone. I don't know how she manages everything without help, but she finds a way. She greeted us with her usual cheery demeanour, and I quickly introduced her to Nick. After they shook hands, the three of us got to talking. "So, Pete, it's been a while since you've been here, and I didn't order any pizza, so what's the occasion?" "It's about what happened last week." "Oh, that. It's a real shame what happened. I'm surprised I didn't have any trouble, to be honest. I only heard about what happened the next day." "Wait, you mean none of the new creatures attacked the library?" Nick asked her. "No, none." "It's not that hard to believe. The library is so quiet, the creatures tend to ignore it. Anyway, we were hoping there might be something here to help us deal with the new ones," I said. "If you mean the book, I'm not sure if there is." "Ah, come on. You don't have any old books lying around or anything?" Nick asked. "Well, I do have this one book. It's from the town's early settlers, but it doesn't have symbols in it, just pictures." "Mind if we take a look at it?" "Sure thing." The book she handed us was old and leathery. It looked like she had made repairs to it to keep it from falling apart. Looking through it, we saw some sketches of various monsters, some of which I didn't recognise, but two caught my eye. One being the worm creature we saw, and the other a pair of eyes with the word gold beside them and a question mark. That was on the last page. After looking through the rest of the book, we closed it, and I told Alice we would head out. "Thanks for your help, Alice," I told her. "No problem, Pete. It's been too long since I had some of Formaggio's pizza." "Well then, I'll have to bring some by. Later." "Bye." After that, Nick and I got in his car. Then he asked me where to next. I told him I was about to give Carl a call, when coincidentally my phone started to ring and I saw that it was him. I put him on speaker, then began speaking with him. "Carl, I was just about to call you. Is something up?"
"I need some help. Everyone else is busy, so I figured I'd call you."
"What exactly do you need help with?"
"No time to explain now, just come on over,"
he told me, then hung up. "Should we head over there?" I get the feeling we should. It didn't take long to drive there. Only about half an hour. Carl was waiting for us far away from his property.
"You should probably park here,"
he said. "Why?" Nick asked.
"Because I have traps set up in my yard."
"What kind?" I hesitantly asked.
"Oh, just some bear traps."
"Oh, well, that doesn't sound too bad."
"A few landmines. I also got some C4 lying around."
And there it is. "Why would you have all that?" Nick asked.
"'Cause of the new fuckers. They come anywhere near my property and they'll leave in pieces."
"What if someone just happens to wander over here?"
"It's cool. I have a barbed wire fence set up. See?"
he said, pointing. Between the trees, we could see parts of the fence he installed. When did you get all this? I asked.
Earlier this week. Some people helped me to install it. The fence, I mean. All the other stuff I put in by myself. Now hop out and I'll help you inside, Pete.
So what exactly do you need us for? I asked once we were inside. We could see a clear locked cabinet with weapons in them lining his walls.
This,
he said, holding up a long silver pendant. At the end was like a flat golden star, with a clear diamond imprinted into it. Oh, I mean, it's pretty and all, but did you really need us to come all the way out here for that? He rolled his eyes, then responded,
I got this from the gold-eyed fucker.
Huh? How?
Honestly, pure luck on my part. I was searching the forest again when I caught some movement from the corner of my eye. I thought it was just another creature, so I quickly turned and swiped at it with my pocket knife. Afterwards, I heard something hit my boot, followed by fleeing footsteps. I got a glimpse of those gold eyes, so I know it was that same one. That reminds me, we actually saw a sketch of those eyes. It was in an old settler book that Alice had at the library. So, this isn't the first time that being has shown up, huh?
Guess not. Anything about the rainbow thingy?
Unfortunately not. Damn. Anyway, I need you guys for a stakeout. There's a chance that Gold Eyes may be after it.
That's your plan. Who knows how long it'll take for it to show up, if at all, Nick said.
Don't worry, I got plenty of room and food. Make yourselves comfortable.
Nick and I sat by the window, watching and waiting. It took until sunset for me to spot something in between the trees. I saw what looked like 2 pieces of gold floating in the darkness. Look, I said, pointing. Carl and Nick looked out to the same window I did.
There's that son of a bitch. Come on,
Carl said, grabbing a rifle, then opened the door. Hang on, I said, grabbing my crutches. I hopped out right behind Carl and Nick.
You want this?
Carl asked a pair of eyes, holding the pendant out in front of him. Carl, don't antagonize it. We have no idea what it's capable of, Nick said. Carl ignored Nick's comment and continued. It didn't take long for the figure that the eyes were attached to walk around to the entrance of the fence and into the light of the sunset. The 3 of us were surprised to see a stereotypical grey alien. He was tall, I'd say over 8 feet. Its mouth was at a neutral position and it stared at us with its shining gold eyes. It held a large metal briefcase in one of his hands, and it wore a black business suit with a red tie that it looked really good in, if I'm being honest. The alien stared at us for a few moments before Carl aimed his rifle at it. Wait! Putting up my hands to stop him from shooting. What? He asked, lowering his gun. It's not doing anything. It's just looking at us.
So what? Are we just supposed to have a staring contest with this fucking thing? I can at least scare it off.
Maybe we can just ask it to leave, Nick suggested.
Of course. Why didn't I think of that? Here, I'll try,
Carl said.
You! Walk off my property!
He told the alien, finger walking in the air.
Understand?
He asked it sarcastically. Clearly, the alien replied calmly. We were shocked, to say the least.
You can talk,
Carl said. I think the answer to that question is fairly obvious. Who are you? And why are you here? I asked it. My name in my native tongue is probably too long for you humans to remember, but in English it translates to Zol, and I have 2 answers to your second question. The obvious one is my necklace. It's important to me and I want it back. And the other answer is in relation to the new creatures which I'm sure this area has experienced again. What do you know about it? Plenty. If you let me inside, I can tell you all I know about it.
Now hang on. I don't know if we can trust this guy. He can get his necklace back, but I want him off my property, Carl said.
What makes it yours? Zol asked him.
Because I was here first.
Pardon me? Were you alive 150 years ago when I came here last? I don't recall seeing you. Then again, 150 years is quite a while, so my memory may be hazy.
Smart-ass motherfucker, Carl said. What's in it for us if we let you in? I asked Zol.
This, he said, pulling out an old book out of his pocket. He showed a page that had a creature we didn't recognise on it, with some runes drawn beside it.
You know how to stop the new creatures?
Nick said.
Indeed I do. Will you accept my offer?
Carl, I asked, looking at him.
Grr. Fine. I should probably warn you where all the explosives are buried.
No need. I saw where you put them,
Zol said, casually stepping around them, much to Carl's irritation. Later, Zol was sitting on the couch beside Carl. His pendant was on the table beside his open briefcase. In it looked to be some kind of laptop.
This is insane. There's a real-life alien sitting on Carl's couch,
Nick said, gesturing towards Zol with his arm. He and I were talking in the kitchen. I know. Honestly, I feel like I should be more surprised than I am right now. But I'm not, I replied.
I guess living near all the other shit has caused us to be less surprised at events like this. Don't get me wrong, it's still crazy. But like you said, it doesn't feel as crazy as it should.
Guys,
Carl called to us, then told us to come into the living room.
Something up?
Nick asked once we were seated.
I wanted to explain some things. First, Carl here seems to be under the impression that I brought in these new creatures. This is not the case. I merely arrived at the same time that they started showing up.
Then what caused them to appear?
I have a theory. The second thing to clear up is about what you refer to as the rainbow thingy. That is my ship. I have it hidden in the forest.
let me guess. It's invisible, right?
Carl asked sarcastically.
Actually, yes.
Oh, so what's your theory? I asked Zol.
To put it simply, someone let these creatures in. Not just the new ones, but the old ones as well.
What? Who would do that? And why?
I'm not sure. But I came here to search for an answer.
Why would you do that?
Because I promised the townspeople I would help them when I returned. And because my planet is being overrun by these creatures, and I'm searching for the way to stop them once and for all.
Your planet?
I'm only one of a handful of survivors that managed to escape. As we speak, those monsters have taken it over. I happened upon this planet where parts of it were giving off the same energy reading as the portals they came from.
Oh, so they do come out of portals?
Carl said.
Yes. We tried to fight them, but we would eventually run out of resources and were overtaken.
Well, if you help us, we'll help you, I said.
Good to know. I say we search tomorrow. I've been searching by myself.
For what?
Another being like me, or some trace of them.
Got it. But we got to be home before tomorrow night.
Very well. I'll head out now. Can you three do me a favour and not mention our encounter to anyone? I think it'd be for the best.
We all agreed. Then Zol left. We went to bed shortly after that to prepare for the long day ahead of us. The next day wasn't very rewarding. We covered a lot of ground and found nothing. I tried helping as best I could, but having to hop around on crutches made me more of a burden than anything else. The only thing I could do was be a lookout for any creatures, which to my credit I was decent at, and I was able to warn everybody before we were attacked. The other silver lining was that Nick got the book Zol showed us to Alice. He told her that we had happened to find it in the forest, but that we didn't remember where exactly. He told us that she would immediately get to work making copies for everyone. When all of us were back at Carl's house, I asked Zol if there was any chance we could see the inside of his ship. He told me that he would think about it, but it'd have to be next week, and he stressed that we were not allowed to touch anything unless he gave us permission. So that's a bit of a motivation to get me through the week. I'll be sure to let you know about the inside of Zol's ship in my next post. Shit has been nuts. Well, they already have, but more so than usual. Anyways, see you all next time. This is Pizza Pete, signing out. Part 6, the finale. Finally, I'm able to update you guys. I would have done it sooner if it weren't for those FBI bastards showing up. Right now, me, Carl and Nick
That's a shitty motel. It smells awful. But at least there's Wi-Fi, and I can't be online for long. So, a few days ago, after my last post, those black SUVs with tinted windows came into town. Nick and I were working a shift with Mr. Formaggio. Miss Formaggio was out getting us some ingredients. It was the middle of mine and Nick's shift when one of them parked in front of the store. We also saw that more of them seemed to be stopping and parking in front of other stores. But not just other stores, homes as well. Two burly-looking bald men stepped out and entered our store. Both were wearing business suits, and one of them had a pair of reflective sunglasses on. "Can we help you?" Mr. Formaggio asked. The two men showed us their badges. "We're with the FBI, and we wanted to ask you folks some questions," the one with the sunglasses said. When he said that, Nick and I exchanged a concerned look. Thankfully, neither of them noticed. "What sort of questions?" Mr. Formaggio replied. "A few days ago, we received reports of strange lights that could be seen hovering over your town. These reports were made by people in neighbouring towns. Do you happen to know anything about that?" Mr. Formaggio did know about Zol. He ended up encountering him a day after my last post. He nearly had a heart attack when he saw him, but Carl was able to convince him that Zol meant no harm. "Can't say that I do," he replied. "Is that right? Well, I'm sure you folks won't mind if we take a look around, right? Oh, and I'm sure I don't need to inform you that you can be punished for lying to the FBI. I'm well aware of that. Can I get you anything?" "No, thank you. We're very busy," he said. Then he and his partner left. Now, we were pretty pissed. The reason being is that we've been trying to get the government involved to deal with the weird creatures in town for years now, but they never responded. It's like freaky monsters that can rip you apart. Whatever. Lights in the sky? We'll be over ASAP. So yeah, I'm sure you can understand why we're just a little shitty. Anyway, when they left, we immediately called Carl and told him the situation. He was at his home at the time, and he told us that he'd warned Zol right away. He also told us that he wanted to place an order, of course. In this case, it was 2 supreme pizzas and an orange soda. Fuck, they're after Zol. Who knows what they'll do if they find him, Nick said once we were off the phone with Carl. Relax, they don't even know about him. If we keep quiet, everything will be fine. And besides, if they stay overnight, they may be more likely to help with our monster problem. And they may be after the ship above all else, Mr. Formaggio said. Those bastards want to see the inside of the ship before I do. We can't let that happen. We need to get them out of town as soon as possible, I said. What about them taking care of our monster problem? Nick asked. Oh yeah, I guess I got caught up in the excitement and forgot. Do you think Nick and I should head over to Carl's right now? I asked Mr. Formaggio. It might look a little suspicious to head there right now. I think we should give at least an hour. Nick, take the trash out. Tell us what you see while you're out there. I took some more calls while Nick took out the trash. When he got back, he informed us there were far more SUVs than we originally thought. More must have arrived when the men talked with us. Nick said at least 100 more seemed to have shown up. What really put us on edge is that he saw some of the government start to get into arguments with store owners. When they did, they closed the blinds to their stores. Shit, I hope that doesn't happen to Carl, I said. He doesn't trust people involved with the government, which is ironic given his potential background. I don't know much about it, and I haven't asked out of politeness. But I've heard rumours around town that he has some military background. If he does, I haven't found any records of him serving, and he may have a distrust of the government due to his supposed service. Anyway, we had a small rush, which made that hour go by pretty quick. Once it died down, me and Nick drove up to Carl's. Along the way, we saw some government officials stepping out of homes, one of which seemed to be wiping some blood off his face. We arrived at Carl's to see 2 SUVs parked in front of his fence. Well, this can't be good, Nick said as we got out. He walked while I used my crutches. We went into his yard to see him surrounded by 4 agents. His hands were cuffed behind his back, and one of the agents had his foot on his back. Nick was about to call out, but I shushed him, then gestured for him to sneak around and go into Carl's house. The agents were too focused on Carl to notice, and I would have just slowed Nick down. He gave me Carl's pizzas and soda to hold, then made his way to his front door. He made sure to keep on the grass so that it wouldn't make any noise. I heard the agents yelling at Carl, asking him about the ship. Carl responded that he didn't know and that they could go fuck themselves. One responded by grinding his shoe on his temple. It was at that moment I decided to do something. I figured Carl would prefer the pizza over the soda, so I chucked the 2-litre bottle at the agent's head, who had his foot on Carl's temple. The bottle burst open, soaking his head and suit in orange soda. Some even got on the other agents. They stared daggers at me. "Who the fuck do you think you are doing that to me?" the one that I threw the bottle at asked. "I'm the pizza man. And that's for you assholes taking so long. We've been trying to contact you for years. And now you show up and start terrorizing us. So quit whining about being a little sticky. I could put you in prison for what you just did." "Is that right? Why don't you stick around for a bit? This area is very active at night." The other agents were about to move in on me, but the soda-soaked agent stopped them. "You say you threw that bottle because we took too long? But could the real reason be that this man is a friend of yours?" he asked, pointing at Carl. "Of course he is. We all know each other in this town, and Carl is a valuable customer. Look, whatever you want to know, he obviously doesn't know it, so get lost. I'll even pay for your dry cleaning of everyone's clothes. That way you won't get laughed at when you get back to your office, or whatever you government people go when you get through with shit like this." "We aren't leaving until we get what we want." "What branch of government are you guys with anyway?" "We are with a branch that investigates paranormal and supernatural occurrences." "So, like the Men in Black?" "No! We aren't the goddamn Men in Black, or the motherfucking X-Files. We were around before that movie or that show was," he growled, taking me by surprise. The agents began trying to calm him down. "Relax, deep breaths," one of them said to him. He breathed in deeply, then exhaled. "No, the branch we serve under doesn't have a name. We've taken to calling it the Mystery Branch," he said to me after regaining his composure. "Wow, how many episodes of Scooby-Doo did you guys have to watch to come up with that one?" His eye twitched at that statement, and I thought he was going to go on another rant, but he kept his composure. "The name isn't official, and I would watch your mouth if I were you. Or something may happen to Carl here." "Well, obviously he doesn't know anything, so why are you people still here?" "You expect us to believe that? Just take a look at this man. He's a fucking loon. Crazy tends to attract this kind of stuff. That loon is my friend. And you say that crazy attracts this kind of stuff, but what would you describe to people as who look for this kind of stuff?" "Touché. Is he still awake?" he asked, looking down at Carl. Then he took his foot off his temple. Carl just moaned in pain, but then managed to speak. "Fuck you," Carl said, and spat on the agent's shoe. He glared at Carl. "This young man is a friend of yours, correct? I wondered if you'd be more willing to talk if it was him at risk," he asked, pulling out a gun, then aimed it at me. "Shooting a guy on crutches? You must be very proud of yourself," I said. "Shut up. Now I'm going to give Carl here until the count of 10, before I shoot your dick off," the agent yelled, aiming the gun at my crotch. "Not my dick!" I yelled. "Then he needs to talk. 1, 2, 3, 4. Before he got to 10, we heard several gunshots. The agents fell to the ground, rolling around in pain while clutching their legs. The head of the group dropped his gun. Luckily he didn't end up shooting me out of reflex. "Nice shot, Nick," I called to him. He was standing on Carl's porch with one of his guns in his hand. "You sneaky little shits," the agent hissed. Carl rolled over and snatched the keys from the agent's belt, then unlocked his cuffs with one of them. He knocked out the head agent with one hard punch. The others tried drawing their guns, but he knocked them up as well. "Are you guys okay, given the circumstances?" Nick asked, after running to us. "I've been better. Impressed your aim has gotten so good. Yeah, those lessons you gave me really paid off. Where's Zol?" "When you guys called, I told him to hide until I knew that those government bastards left town. I don't know where he is, but we need to leave town. More of those agents will probably come here."
"What? What about the others in town?" I asked.
"They'll be fine. They don't know anything."
"Shouldn't we call them first?"
"No, I heard them say they wanted to put the town on lockdown. They'll probably confiscate people's phones soon. Speaking of phones, get rid of yours."
"Seriously?"
"Yes, you too, Nick."
Nick sighed, then smashed his phone. I was about to do the same thing when I realised something. I accidentally grabbed one of my old phones. "Shit," I said.
"Wait, that might actually help us. If you go somewhere with Wi-Fi, you can use your phone to access the internet. As long as we don't plaster our last names and we're careful, we'll be safe. I even have an old laptop we can use," Carl said, then ran inside his home. He came back out with a laptop and several bags.
What's in these? Nick asked when Carl gave him one.
"Just some supplies, ready in case I need to move quickly. Now let's go, it's going to be dark soon."
We took Carl's car, then sped down the road from his home. The road led directly into town. He was going to take the next exit out of town when we saw the several SUVs blocking the exit.
"Fuck! We're too late!"
Carl cursed under his breath. Multiple agents were in front of the SUVs. One of them had a megaphone.
"Turn back and go back to your homes or store,"
the agent called to us. "Shit, what do we do?" I asked. "Wait," Carl said, pointing to the sky. We saw some heavy storm clouds and a streak of lightning up ahead. Rain began pouring from the sky. The agent began yelling at us through the rain. He told us that if we weren't going to move, we'd be forced to. He and the other agents were going to get back in their vehicles when one of them yelled and pointed. In the sky, there were at least a dozen flying creatures. They were joined by 20 returned, and several of the long-necked monsters. They screamed when the return attacked. A few agents got killed by them, but the others managed to shoot and kill the returned. That was when the other creatures joined in. The long-necked one pounced, then gobbled most of the other agents. It accidentally knocked over one of the SUVs out of the way in the process. One agent managed to get by it, but was torn apart and eaten by the flying creatures.
"Not the way out I was hoping for, but I'll take it,"
Carl said, speeding through the gap of the vehicles. The creatures were too busy eating to notice us. We didn't stop for 3 hours, all the while checking to make sure we weren't followed. We've been on the run for over a week now. We only stopped to sleep at the shittiest motels. Carl carries a lot of cash on him, and we've made sure to use aliases. We've also been making sure to take turns keeping watch. By typing this, I'm sure you can guess it's my turn to keep watch tonight. I don't know what we're going to do. We have no way of contacting anyone in town without being tracked, and we have no idea when or even if those government agents will leave. I asked Carl what we should do, and he just told me that he knows a guy that we can see. He won't elaborate no matter how much Nick and I ask. The worst part of all this is that I never saw inside Zol's ship, but I hope he's okay. For now, I better get off. Since we've been on the run, I tend to get paranoid if I'm online for too long, but I felt like you all should be updated. I can't log off as the pizza man right now, I guess. So this is just Pete, logging off. See you all next time.
Wow, that was an epic episode. If you enjoyed listening to this instalment, be sure to pop over to the author's Reddit profile,
The Pizza Man 2222, also known as Rose Black 2222.
and drop them a line, or even give them a glowing review. The link to their Reddit profile will be below in the description, and be sure to check out their Patreon for more stories. The link to their Patreon will also be listed below. Thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed my narration, then please feel free to like and share the video, leave a comment below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell and then select all. That way you'll receive all notifications each time I upload a new video. Have you had any cryptid sightings, paranormal or supernatural encounters, or even had any creepy or terrifying situations that you would like to share? Or have you even written a creepypasta story that you would like me to narrate? You can submit your stories and encounters to cryptidsroost@gmail.com. If you wish to remain anonymous, that's fine with me, not a problem. Now I also have a Facebook group, Twitter, Reddit and Discord. Now again, all the relevant links will be below. If you would like to support the channel and help to make it grow, my PayPal is paypal.me/cryptidsroost. Again, that'll all be listed below. And don't forget, where fear is, happiness is not.